I'm calling us to order.
I'm not writing, sir. I've done that before.
Order.
You know, we have to take turns.
Are we ready? Okay, I think we're ready to begin. We'll call the meeting to order, 5:30. We roll call? Okay.
Let the record show all commissioners are present except for Commissioner Winters.
We need, okay. Okay, so we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, we're gonna do it all together.
Okay.
All right? Okay, and then we have a special presentation tonight. Are we ready?
Yeah, I'm just pulling that up now. I'd like to introduce Lauren Kirk, who will be joining us this evening to give an overview of Trail 95 and Trail 82. So let me get this pulled up. Lauren, turn it over to you.
All right. So first we're going to do Trail 95. So the project goals is to enhance the safety along Rancho Santa Fe. El Camino del Norte, that was a typo. Increase access to Encinitas Trails Network for pedestrians and equestrians. Next slide. So you can see here that it's in the, right there along El Camino del Norte between Rancho Santa Fe Road and the county line is the rough bearings of it. So here's the Trails Master Plan. So you can see that it has 5 direct connections. So up there is 95, it connects to Trail 89, 94, 96, 97, and also the county trail systems. So 95 is very much of a key trail to connect to that area. So here we see the beginning of Trail 95. Now I said it started at Rancho Santa Fe Road, but it actually connects at Lucille, which is slightly to the east of Rancho Santa Fe. There's a soft surface trail that is between Lucille and Rancho Santa Fe. So this trail is going to be a DG trail, as we see down here in section AA. It is DG with that is 8 feet wide for the travel path, with 1 foot on each side, where we'll have on one side we'll have a fence. Again, here we see it's the same cross section for section BB, but going down here we see what the crosswalks are going to look like as they cross Windmill Ranch Road. It will be the stamp trail crossings that you see in the Livenhain area. Again, it's going to be the composite trail fence. Here, pretty much the same thing. It's just a different cross section here, because the road here starts to dip down, and so we'll have to put some fill in. Same thing here. It's a trail, so it gets a little boring. There's not much variance. And you'll see here that the section EE, there is some storm drain that infrastructure that I'm putting in there as well, that will connect to the existing storm drain system there. We aren't increasing any flow of storm drain to the receiving body, but we are helping to direct it off the road and the trail to keep erosion down on this new trail. So tentative schedule, so we gave the NTP the notice to proceed on 4/4, And then we're anticipating any construction on 6/27, 60 working days. Hopefully there'll be no hiccups. We have everything squared away as far as materials are concerned. And today's climate, material availability is a huge thing that is delaying us on a lot of projects. So any questions on Trail 95?
I have a quick one. Oh, go ahead.
This is David Warren, Commissioner Warren. I was wondering about, and I have asked this before, about connecting to the county trail system. Is there any information, and maybe as a follow-up, because I've kind of asked and I've never really found any actual county trails. I think there might be a private residence that you have to go through. But do you know anything about that connection to the county trail system?
I'm unfamiliar with the county trail system or their labeling of their trail systems. From my understanding, when I have been on them, there is not many wayfinding signs, and that could lead to that assumption.
Okay, so I could maybe follow up with you and we could learn
Sure.
more about that, how that connects?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I
thank
mean, we're connecting via the bridge. So Trail 95 ends at right before you hit that bridge. Are you familiar with the area?
Yeah, I live very close to that. Mhm.
Okay, yeah. So the county trail system picks up at the bridge, on the west side of the bridge.
Okay,
Okay, and then as you go in there, you'll see that they have a fairly well-maintained soft surface trail system that connects right into that bridge. But as far as going through their entire system, especially in that area, I don't know if they have any wayfinding signs. I do remember somebody saying that that's one thing that in that area they do not have. They try to keep it much more of a rural thing, even though it's a fenced-off trail.
okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I just need to maybe go down there and I've talked to the Encinitas Trails Coalition about it too, and they offered to take me down and show me how I can get through.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.
I had one quick question. Do you mind going back 2 slides? Did you in the initial map show that there's a trail on the north side of that road as well?
There is, wish I had a laser pointer right now. You see where the crosswalk is that goes across El
Yeah,
Camino del
yeah.
Norte? There's that light line right there that kind of connects into. That is another trail
Okay.
that goes off in there, and I have to look at the trail's master plan to give you the number. I want to say 96. 96,
94.
yes, correct.
90,
But there is currently no trail on the north side of El Camino del Norte. There's between 97 and 96 on the north side. There is a footpath, but from my understanding, nothing official.
so that we were just looking at 95 and 94 exists, right?
No.
Oh, 94 doesn't exist.
94 does not exist at the time. Actually, no. Okay.
Proposed. Okay, got it. So this is a really critical juncture for this portion until 94 at least comes into
Yeah,
play.
a lot of these are actually footpaths.
Okay.
When we say proposed, it's like 99. That's a footpath that I've seen horses, joggers, walkers on when I was doing Trail 82.
Okay.
Some information for that. So a lot of the trail system, please correct me if I'm wrong, these alignments have come about from just how the citizens use these corridors.
Which makes sense. Okay, my next question then is, just out of curiosity, what is the cost on a project like this?
This current cost, once the smoke clears everything, I believe $750,000.
What's the distance of that trail?
950 linear feet.
Wow. Why is it so expensive?
Everyone's asking themselves that on every single construction project we have.
Okay.
Materials are very scarce right now due to COVID, so people aren't manufacturing things as much as they did. For some reason, the war in Ukraine is causing us to have some shortages. From what I've read in the news, we've all heard these articles or seen these articles, and everything's just more expensive. I do see where you're coming from for the cost of it.
I'm more just curious for my own knowledge as we look at other development projects down the line. So it's just helpful to contextualize how much it costs just to do even a relatively small segment of DG, and seemingly not much more other than I think the two water features, not water features, but the drainage. Thank you.
Oh, the storm drain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
I'll switch over to Trail 82.
So Trail 82 is, as we saw, it was right next to Trail 95. It will enhance the safety along Rancho Santa Fe. Currently, it is more or less just a single track footpath that everyone uses. And also, same thing, it will increase the access to Encinitas Trails network for pedestrians and equestrians. So here you see the project limits here. It is 4,854 linear feet, which is 0.91 miles, so almost a mile. It's along Rancho Santa Fe and connects from Encinitas Boulevard to El Camino del Norte is its limits. And this is on the east side of Rancho Santa Fe. So again, same map here. You see that there's, the proposed trails that it all connects into, but these are all used. I think 104A is actually a street, so is 103 and 102. 199 are footpaths that people use regularly. But you see how it goes along the entire corridor here. So it's a major one. So here's the first section here. Now, before I begin, one of the main sticking points with this trail is the amount of utility coordination that we have to do. Because SDG&E owns the pole and a guy wire, and then there's maybe 3 or 4 other utilities on top of those poles, and each one of those owns their own guy wire. And so it's a lot of coordination between everyone to say, hey, what are you putting up here for the redesign? And then everyone has to get easements sometimes for those guy wires. So from here we could see that it's going to be pretty much look very uniform to the previous trail and to the existing trails. We have the composite fencing. We have the stamped trail crossings. Right now, there could be a retaining wall along here. There's a development that should be going in that will eliminate that retaining wall, which is great for price. And if you're familiar with the area, this is where they launch hot air balloons. I think they have a pumpkin patch. And so, next slide. All right, so here is where we have the more difficult section of this project. We have the bridge actually is more, it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as the utilities in this area. The bridge is going to be prefabricated truss bridge, as you can see down here. It'll look very similar to this picture. This is a stock one from the manufacturer. And then just upstream of that bridge on the left-hand side is a whole bunch of utility boxes. So I believe OMWD, Cox, and SDG&E own them. And one of the hard parts about this is this trail, as I said, is 8 to 10 feet wide. And this is a very narrow area here. So in order to move a utility, those boxes have very specific parameters that have to be around them. The bollards, those big concrete poles in front of them, those have to be a certain distance away from them. They have to be a certain offset from the shoulder of the road. So when we do the utility coordinations, those utility companies are going to have a long time. They're going to take a long time to do the redesigns because it is a very difficult redesign just because of space. It's like an impossible game of Tetris. So going up, next slide. It's a trail. It's very uniform. Yeah, looks the same every length on here. As you can see, go back one slide, please. As you can see, there are this is a very steep area right here, so we will have to have some very short retaining walls. Next slide, please. Again, exact same. There are some residents who do have fences that are over their right of way, and if any object or fence or anything like that is out in the right of way, I'm not touching it unless it falls in the footprint of my project. Okay, and I'm just gonna say, hey, you just need to get out of the footprint. I will not be, doing you have to move it back to the property line thing. There's a lot of pushback from some people who had fences along that line there. I got the Equestrian group. They okayed a lot of the pinch points there for fences. And here is the very end of it. And so that is at the far right. You'll see this one kind of meanders a bit, and this is ducking around poles, is what that is. And then we end over here to the far right, almost a mile long. So we're hoping to finish plans in the winter spring of 22, and then outside utilities can take up to a year because so many companies have to wait on somebody else to do their redesign in order for them to start their own redesign, and everyone's backed up. Outside utilities perform construction in the winter, and then the city can begin construction in the summer, fall of 2024. Any questions?
What's our price per foot on that one?
I could.
The estimate on this one for the entire project is about 4.2.
That's not per foot.
Oh, right. But I don't know what the per foot was. But I do
gonna-
know the.
I was gonna calculator.
the per foot.
I was gonna calculator.
And have we already asked the landowners to move their fences off the footprint?
No, that will happen closer to construction. Typically, that's how it's done with construction projects. I believe we only have to give them a couple weeks notice, but I like to give them at least a month or two just to coordinate it. So like my project doesn't have to come through and do it and then backcharge anyone. I don't like doing that. So I give them ample time.
Okay, thank you.
And the ones that did have complaints about the fences I've already had discussions with them. So that it's on their radar that this notification will be coming down the pipe.
Is this trail currently funded, or is it under consideration for the city council to fund this fiscal year?
This is currently an unfunded project.
And is there any possibility of doing it in stages, or does it make the most sense to fund it all at one time?
If you could please go back to the trail master plan. Short answer is no, it does not make sense to do in stages. Because you'll be building a trail to nowhere if you do it in stages. And so we don't want to direct an equestrian or a pedestrian just to something that just ends. And so this is one of those ones that it's most convenient, we believe, to go the entire alignment all at once.
Is there any potential for the developers of that initial lot space to provide a portion of the trail?
Yeah, once we have the plans done, we need to communicate with them, the owner, and they have verbally said that they are open to this, building that section of trail and granting us the land that's needed for that. Because if he develops that, he has to widen that road.
Thank you, by the way. This is very helpful. I could be wrong, but I think there's an existing trail along some of that route currently.
Yes, there actually is. I don't have that pictured here. That's in front of the community center and slightly north of the community center. And so that's a wooden post and beam railing that we no longer use in the county of San Diego.
So you'll basically be putting your trail over the whole area? Because I know by the meeting house, is that what you mean? By
Yes,
the community?
yeah.
Okay. So I saw you had a tentative fall design from the utilities.
Mhm.
Is that, is the relationship with the utility companies good? Are they thinking, okay, good, that sounds like a good plan? Or I'm just wondering if there are any, like, I know there can always be obstacles, and funding is the biggest one, but what is the real situation with the utility companies? Are they on board? Because I've heard, past updates that it was going to be really difficult to get them to move.
We have prior rights through the MOU with the utility companies, and so we just need to provide them with 100% plans that are final, and then they will then start their designs, and once they finish, they will do their construction.
Okay, thank you.
And would they wait before they do their designs until we have money to pay them?
They could. All right.
So they need 100% design plans before they'll move forward with that. At that point, we would need to consult with them and then figure out what their plan is as far as that goes. I don't believe that we have to have the funding in place for them to move that. We just need 100% design.
Any other questions?
I was just going to ask when the trail is going to be considered for funding. Is it in this session?
The trail will not be considered for funding in this session. They're already all the way through most of the CIP. So this will be addressed again in the next 2-year cycle, which we will start planning for probably in November, December of this year.
Thank you.
Anything else? We good? Lauren, thank you so much. That was really helpful to bring all of us up to speed. And we have a bunch of new commissioners who hadn't had an opportunity to review those trails yet. So we appreciate you taking the time to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any oral communications?
There are none.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda?
There are none.
Okay. So has everyone had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Second.
Use your hand. Tap it. My mouse didn't work. I had to touch it. Yeah.
The minutes are approved unanimously.
Okay, great. So now we're going to move into the work plan. And just so people know, I mean, as much as we're able to get done today, that'd be great, but we don't necessarily need to submit this until, I believe, June. So we have time. You don't have to feel pressure to get this final and ready today, but as much progress as we can make, it'll just get us there a little bit faster. So I will just give a quick note that I watched the city council meeting this week where they discussed the budget and the ARPA funding. And as you've seen from some of the price points on these projects, our funding will probably be limited again this year. So just something to keep in mind in terms of what our goals and outcomes are for this work plan, that it might be smaller steps than some of us would like to see taken, but we're mid-cycle on a lot of projects with a lot of big ones still to come. So just something to be aware of. Okay, so we'll go through and then we're going to put members into the ad hocs for each of these. So we'll start with goal number 1, which is the Parks and Recreation staff conduct annual tours for the commission. 1 to observe various summer programs and 1 to visit city parks, beaches, trails, and open space. And I think we're going to try to get back to doing 2 tours this year. They will be the same as they've been in the past, where we'll drive ourselves. You can join or exit when you need to, but we'll aim to do 1 in July, and we'll aim to do 1 in September, if that works for people. And if not, we can change that, but that's how it's been done in the past. So is anyone interested in being involved in the ad hoc to help plan those?
I know originally we said that we were going to be dark in July, so we
For a
won't do that
traditional
tour?
meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So before I started, staff has directed me that there used to be 2 in July would be dark for a meeting, but they would do a tour. So we could discuss that. That doesn't have to be the case, but if we want to get back to doing 2, those are options for us, but we don't have to. It was just to see some of the programming that in the past 2 years we haven't been able to observe.
Chair Leppin, I can just clarify that a little bit. So what we had done previous to the pandemic is we did a recreation tour in July, because that's the height of our recreation programming, and you're able to see a ton of recreation programming going on at that time of the year. So Seaside Day Camp, all the beach programming that happens, things that are happening at the community center. We have library programs and such. So it's just a better view of what's going on because it's happening at the height of the summer. And then traditionally we did the park tour in September usually. And that took place of our normal meeting. And so that's how we've done it pre-pandemic. You guys can do it however you want, whatever you think is most informative to you. So,
Thoughts, opinions?
I've yet to see a recreation program tour, because right after I started, COVID hit. And so really would actually enjoy and think we should do that in July.
Yeah, I
And
like,
I'll participate and help.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I agree. I like the 2 tour a year schedule. I think that's great. And I would add, I'd be happy to work with Commissioner O'Halloran on the ad hoc.
Go ahead.
I also agree with the 2 tours. I feel like recreational services doesn't get much attention on the commission, and I would love to learn more about it. And I even think when we look at our work plan, there's often nothing to do with recreational services on the work plan. So I think for us to be more informed as a commission, I think it would be great to do that.
And I think during COVID, there was a lot of work done out in our parks, a lot of renovations. I think it's a good opportunity for those of us to reach into areas where we don't normally see those parks and get a look at everything that you guys have done, because you've done a ton of work. So yeah, I think it's well worth our time.
Okay, so do we just want to make note of what commissioners are interested in being on the ad hoc? Okay, so it's Commissioners O'Halloran and Commissioner Warren. Okay, thank you. Anything else before we move on to the next? Okay, so item number 2 was to attend city-sponsored events, serving as city ambassadors by welcoming, meeting, and greeting the public, and serving in a volunteer capacity, conducting various events duties as needed. In the past, we've asked each commissioner to participate in a minimum of 2 events if possible without an ad hoc. My only thought is, do we want to discuss potentially having an ad hoc specific to the holiday parade? I thought Commissioner Hanson did a really, really wonderful job organizing, just kind of getting everyone on the same page and being a point of contact to organize all of us. So a thought, though it's not something we have to do. Can we group that under this work plan item? Okay. I'd be happy to help as well. Any other thoughts or?
Could we just clarify, Commissioner Hanson I just want to make sure I'm understanding what we're.
So we won't have an ad hoc that's managing every event for the city. We'll still ask commissioners to attend a minimum of 2 if possible, but as many events as they can. But when it comes to the holiday parade specifically, we think it might be beneficial to have somebody who's prepared to be the point of contact or a group of commissioners, just like we did last year.
Okay.
So we can file it under this work plan item, but they would just be responsible really for that one event.
Okay, that sounds good to me, yeah.
Okay, so number 3, identify guest speakers for monthly meetings. So again, being that a number of us joined this commission during COVID, the guest speakers it wasn't as regular, but our goal is really to have a guest speaker at every meeting we have physically in this chamber. So we're hoping to find an ad hoc who could be responsible for getting speakers who can attend these meetings and ideally covering a variety of things from recreation and programming to the beaches, marine safety, the trails, parks, et cetera. So if anyone's interested in serving on that ad hoc. Not all at once.
I don't think we've ever had like designated humans to be on that ad hoc.
We haven't. And I think the thinking behind making the change was somebody's accountable, not everyone assuming everyone else is accountable. So it's not saying that commissioners can't all have opinions or ideas or suggestions. We just feel like we'll be more successful in getting speakers lined up if somebody or a group of people are actually working towards that.
Commissioners and Chair Lapin, I can chime in here too. On our senior commission, we actually have an ad hoc for this, and they've been very good at connecting speakers with staff so that we can schedule them. So you're not necessarily scheduling them, you're brainstorming, coming up with ideas, listening to your fellow commissioners on what they'd like to see, and seeing, looking at what's out there as far as the topic that you want to have covered at the meetings. So it's very helpful with our senior commission, and so it was a suggestion for this one.
Thank you. I just want to emphasize that if we do have an ad hoc with 1 or 2 people, that all the commissioners still consider it their role. When I started, I thought, okay, if each commissioner got 1 speaker for over the course of a year, we'd be in pretty good shape. So I would encourage that mentality, and we can work with the ad hoc. I think that will help. But I just don't want any commissioner to think, oh, okay, there's an ad hoc that does guest speakers now, because it's really the job of the whole commission.
Okay, so Commissioner Hanson, you're interested in doing, anyone else interested?
I'll help.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Winters isn't here, so we'll fold him in as well on whatever he's interested in doing. But okay, so number 4. Now this is a new special project, and I believe it was Vice Chair Ritter who brought this up. But looking at best practices for diversity and equity in recreation programming, and something that I know staff is interested in, and you just mentioned this, but I would like to maybe think about this more broadly of programming as a whole, and looking at programming, and then within the context of programming and what's being offered, are we equitable in what we're offering, how we're communicating it, how we are just thinking about what's popular within the community. I reread the master plan, and it talked about how Zumba was like all the rage at the point that they were introducing programming, and we haven't really done, I think Commissioner Elliott, you just mentioned too, we haven't really refocused on this since COVID, but just anyone to look at, is our offering representative of what's trending in the community? Are we being equitable in what we're offering and how we're offering it? And so maybe we can broaden this to just a broader recreation project. But I'm open to thoughts on that.
I would like to serve on this ad hoc. As many of you know, I've just spent the last year on the City of Encinitas Equity Committee, and we are presenting on May 11th a report with some suggestions for the City Council to consider implementing. And I feel like I have a good amount of background that I might be able to share along these things. The whole DEI process is a journey. We all kind of learn as we continue to go through the process and understanding different perspectives. I think there's a lot of different ways that park and recreation departments are kind of looking at these issues, not only from a standpoint of things like recreational programming, but also things like community engagement practices and policies, basically the professional staff and the volunteer education, skill development. There's also things like contracting procurement requirements when the Parks and Rec does go out to bid on items, and then also considering the volunteer recruitment practices that the staff does with regards to recruiting all those volunteers. And I think for us to be welcoming, and that's really what we want, is we want our citizens and visitors to feel welcome here in our parks, beaches, and in our recreational programming. So there is, and I agree that it should be somewhat broad, but obviously, as Director Carlin always likes to point out, we want to make sure that it is something that is identifiable and achievable. So I also had mentioned that we have a commissioner that is unfortunately terming out at the end of this term. So I also would like to consider taking some time and effort among the commissioners, and then also with kind of a dedicated and intentional effort to reach out to find a diverse audience to try to fill those big shoes that Marla is going to be leaving. So I would like to also kind of consider that aspect in addition to looking at some of these best practices. And I've never really explored with Park and Rec staff as to kind of what they're currently doing, and I do know just from looking at some of their new playground equipment that they have installed that it does provide some equipment for those people that have disabilities and might have some special needs. So I know that they're already thinking about those things, that they're involved in what they're currently doing. But I also feel like I mentioned before, the whole DEI is a journey, and that there's always more things that we could be doing. So, so I would say that's a long answer, in that I would like to participate on this ad hoc, and then I might also recommend maybe some additional description in the verbiage, which I can kind of work on and bring to the next meeting.
I think that would be great. So are you open to this particular project being more focused on recreational programming, but knowing that this awareness of diversity and equity should really be an undercurrent of every project that we undertake, and just being mindful, like especially with the recruitment and implementation, or even the guest speakers potentially? Would you be open to this specific project, though, being specific to recreation?
I think, well, I guess the question is, are we only going to limit to recreation programming?
Not necessarily, but I think it's something that staff has I think expressed support for us being more aware of programming, especially because for the past few years, again, there's been very little money and attention that has been able to go towards it with COVID. So we want to make sure that we've got programming on the map. But I think that programming, volunteer recruitment, development of some of the assets we have, I think all of that has a diversity and inclusion. So I don't know if you're envisioning this being its own project or if it's something that we want to bring awareness to in each of the various projects we undertake. I guess that's what I'm trying to clarify.
Well, I do think that DEI we should always look through the lens of DEI as we do whatever we're doing. I think that the city will probably end up having a DEI statement, much like they have an environmental impact statement on most everything they do. So we're already going down that road a bit. I would say I'd like to work a little bit more on coming up with an idea to kind of expand it out a little bit better.
Okay.
But I think that this is a great start.
So then do we want to add a separate project for recreation programming? Is that probably the best path to making sure we cover programming, but we also are covering a more robust DEI project?
Well, I definitely think that programming should be a focus, and I don't necessarily know if it needs to be separated out into different ad hocs.
Staff, do you have any thoughts?
So we put this one on here because we do have a diversity and inclusion committee, and they are going to be coming forward with some recommendations to the city council. We are anticipating that there probably will be some things that are related to parks and recreation, but we really wanted to put something on here that was recreation focused and something that would be important in the community, and that's why we suggested this at the last meeting to possibly put something on related to recreation programming and best practices in diversity and equity. There are and there are quite a few speakers out there on this topic that we could bring in to explore it a little bit more.
Okay, so I'll put it to the commission, I guess. Do we want to split these up, or do we want to look at recreational programming with one kind of outcome goal to be that we are auditing the diversity and inclusion element?
I feel like we need to follow Vice Chair Ritter's lead on this because he's done more work on it than any of us. And it sounds to me like you're leaning more toward we can bring it under this single umbrella. I think if we just alter the wording and make sure that it's understood that these policies are important to maintain and project in everything we do. And I think just going in and retooling the wording a little bit will accomplish that.
I tend to agree as well. I think that as a work plan item, that something regarding DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion should definitely be included. And then it's just a matter of listing what the goal statements are going to be under that topic. I think having multiple DEI work plan items may not be best. I think maybe if we could just have one ad hoc working on it, and then we can kind of refine exactly what we're going to be doing. I am interested to hear about what the commission recommendations are, and then we can kind of work with those and see what we can do. I guess the only other thing that I would just say is that I would like to consider, and perhaps it's on another work plan item as we go through the list here, that that there is intentional effort in canvassing candidates for the city council to consider for the open commission space that will come up in a year. So if that might be something that the commission would be interested in doing, I just would love to have a nice broad field with a diverse group of people that the city council can take a look at when it comes up, not only for the open position coming up now, but also in the future.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'll just add, I think the one work plan item is a good idea.
Yeah.
And then it could be focused from that point. And even if, I know we want to have a defined outcome, but once it's put together and we see who's on the ad hoc, they could further define, and even if it doesn't go on the work plan, they can have, very concrete defined goals. So I think that I recommend one work plan item.
Okay. Okay. Do we want to try to work on the outcomes now, or should we just get all of our stated goals aligned to what we'd like, and then at our next meeting we can finalize outcome goals? Is that okay? Okay. Is everyone here okay with that too? Okay. So is there anyone else interested in working on this ad hoc? Okay, well, I will happily work on this ad hoc. I don't know who's taking notes on that, but I'll put it into the universe. Okay, so number 5, our special project is volunteer recruitment and implementation. And Director Carlin, do you mind giving the commissioners a quick overview of what the work we're doing on the website and how this ad hoc would be involved?
I'd be happy to. So pre-pandemic, we were working on this a little bit. Right now, we really don't have a space for individuals to go if they want to volunteer with the city. We do have a person in the department that is assigned to volunteer recruitment and being the point of contact, but on our website, we really don't have a place to go. So we are going to be implementing a new software called Volgistics. We've already purchased a iPad that people can check in on at events, that kind of thing, sign waivers, all that kind of stuff. But this would be basically a website that people could go to. They could sign up for things ahead of time if there's an event coming up, or if there's a special project, or for our senior nutrition program, they can get a job description of what they're going to be doing at that event or for that particular program or project, and then they can be assigned a time or sign up for a time to be there, sign waivers, all that kind of stuff. So what we were thinking is that we would have an ad hoc committee from this group to kind of talk about, what's the best way to maybe formulate that web page. Also maybe on some, what are the best ways to recruit volunteers, get them to go to that web page, and just basically talk some of these things out with community members like yourself who are volunteers as commissioners and have volunteered in the community, and just getting some feedback from the commissioners on that. This, I had a thought too, as you were speaking about the last item. This could be a place too where you say volunteer recruitment and implementation. Commissioners are volunteers for the cities, and so that could be an area where you could put in something like recruiting or the word convincing came to mind, but that's not the right word. Reaching out to individuals who have diverse backgrounds that may be interested in being on a commission and directing them in the right direction for that.
That's great, thank you. And I'll just note that in my very thorough rereading of the Parks Master Plan, there is an objective 2.3, which states that one of the goals of the master plan is to expand volunteer programs, which states in part that they want to review current volunteer programs, look for additional opportunities, and demonstrate the value. So we could also potentially align this special project with that item in the master plan if we want to have a direct connection. We think that it's a good match for for doing so. Just something else to think about as we work through this item.
I'm interested in participating on this ad hoc. I wanted to ask could the commissioners who are involved, could they help make suggestions to what events we want volunteers for? Say, for example, like a park, trail, cleanup, things like that, or are you envisioning more just supporting the administrative side of the program?
I think it could be a little bit of both. It's mostly trying to build the program back up from where it was before. Like I said, it was very informal before. We had a point of contact that would reach out for our needs. But there are a variety of things that we do in the city, and I've challenged staff a little bit. Before Tracy came on, I was challenging Christy, who took on the Recreation Services Manager position for a little bit, to really review some of the things that we do, and are there some things in the department that we could do with volunteers? And maybe looking at it from a risk management perspective, looking at it from a community view. Are there individuals in the community that would want to volunteer for some things that we could use volunteers for that we really haven't looked at before? So definitely a little bit of all of what you spoke about.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.
Director Carlin, on the new software that you're going to have, will it end up basically building a database of past volunteers that we could reach out to for future events, or to volunteer again at the same event just the next year, so that the whole volunteer process becomes easier and easier to manage and promote?
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing about the Volgistics software too is that we can actually track volunteers. So when we have volunteers come to an event, we can track how many hours that they've worked and put a value on that. So there is a way to put a value on, a dollar value on what volunteers give back to a city.
And then also perhaps recognition for those volunteers that tend to be super volunteers and spend a lot of hours doing that. That would be great.
He stole my thunder.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's exactly what
You know
I
what?
was
Say it again.
Got a lot of experience in volunteering and working with volunteer software. So I think I'd be pretty good on working on the other side of that.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was also thinking you'd be very good for this one, so great. Anyone else interested? Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys. So the next one, number 6, is continue to support the support of patrons of Encinitas Parks as they continue support of parks and recreation. Commissioner Warren, you're probably the best to speak to if there's anything else currently happening with the group, but it's something we definitely want to keep on the work plan.
Yeah, and I'll keep my name on it. I envision more city events, more opportunity to go out there. I see myself and anyone else on the ad hoc going to city events, and whether they're Parks and Rec or not, and trying to recruit potential donors. It's kind of like volunteers, except we're looking for more patrons, who can help out financially. But then the other issue is the leadership problem with PEP. So I'm not really sure what we can do other than recruit and try to find leadership, possibly meet with staff and see if there's any sort of way to kind of form it in a different kind of structure. But I'd be happy to be involved with that. Are there gonna be summer concerts this year?
There absolutely are. There's 4 summer concerts this year. I don't have the specific dates in front of me right now, but there's 2 in July and 2 in August.
Okay.
And we already have the bands secured, so we're excited to bring those to the community.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's all I really have for PEP.
I'd be happy to work with David. I've got a little bit of experience working with the guy who lost its energy. And last I talked to Sandy, so there's a 501c3 that may be failing in compliance, and I don't know who to go to keep that active.
Probably we should talk to Sandy about that. I know they have a secretary and a treasurer, but we should bring that to their attention. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thanks. And just a reminder that even if you don't sign up for an ad hoc tonight, there's still time, as long as we don't have 3 people already on it. So think about it after this as well. Okay, so item number 7 is, we've got some categories to this, which is participate in the Parks and Recreation Department's implementation of the Parks Master Plan. Specific focus includes, but not limited to, items. So 1.2.A is the Trails Master Plan, and I think it still makes sense personally to keep this on the work plan, though I think my personal opinion would be that the goals or the outcomes of this subcommittee be around auditing and any help with outer spatial and the launch of that we can provide, as well as something that comes up repeatedly as a community point of interest in the Parks Master Plan are more wayfinding signs within the trails system. So I think those might be 2 areas that this subcommittee could focus on in this next term, but I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts on what goals for this could be, or anyone's interest in participating.
I think that's I like that you looked at that and that there's like well-defined items within that Trails Master Plan, because that historically, I think it was a little bit vague, where we were wondering, well, okay, we all love trails and how do we help? So I like that there's more detail in that.
Okay, well, I'm happy to work on that one.
And I will too.
Okay, woohoo. Okay, so then the next item in this is 1.4.B, which is sand volleyball, pickleball, and tennis courts. And I just, I wanted to make another note and reference back to the master plan, which you guys can all just disregard, or it can motivate and inspire us all. Objective 1.4, which is what this initially was aligned to, it states in part that the demand for usage of Encinitas parks, beaches, and athletic facilities continues to grow, and the department should look for opportunities to add new amenities to enhance the experience of users. And then further down, they talk about there's also great interest in increasing opportunities for active recreation. Those include adding additional courts, such as sand volleyball, tennis, basketball, and pickleball. And I wondered if it didn't make sense to even put fitness development into this category as a means of using it as a enhancement to our park system. I don't know that it matters, but I wondered if all of these things could be looked at in the lens of, if we're redoing a park or if we're reconsidering usage within a park, do any of these make sense there? So I don't have a strong opinion, but I don't know if it helps us with our goal achievement or deters from us being focused on one or the other. But I just wanted to put it out there that I think that the city is really looking for amenities to enhance the experience for users of the park. So just something to think about as we discuss both this 1.4.B and then the fitness trail and fitness court through this next work plan cycle.
It seems like having, well, at least in our last year, having these separate allowed for a high level of focus and really achievement of goals on each of the separate areas. And I'm not sure putting them together would get us to that same level of success. I I guess the 1.4.b really is focused now around ECP, although we looked at courts, and I would think we'd expect to continue to look at the existing tennis and pickleball courts in the city and look for additional options and community support. But I know, there's funding to do some work with ECP over this next year, and I'd like us to definitely have a focus there. At the same time, again, the work that was done on fitness trail and court planning was fantastic last year, so I wouldn't want to lose the momentum from there either.
That's fair. Thank you.
I would also agree with him in the sense that I feel like although there might be some large overall similar goals, I think they can also be very different. So I think 1.4.b is really kind of recognizing that we have to wait for the consultants to do their work, and the whole idea that we kind of support the public outreach. I really feel like that's kind of a different thing in itself, and a little bit different than item 8. So I would agree that I'd like to keep them separate.
Okay. So then let's focus on 1.4.b. What do we think might be a realistic outcome for this subcommittee to focus on in this work plan year? And then are any commissioners interested in serving on the ad hoc to fulfill those outcomes?
Chair Lapin?
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in here. Both Parks Operation Manager David and I have met with Roy, who is our planning director. We talked a little bit about what this process is going to look like, and really the first step in the process is going to be traffic. It's going to be traffic, parking, and noise assessments. And that's really what the first step of that is going to be. That will start late fall. And that's probably going to take us through the term of this year's work plan. So as far as like public outreach and such, or things like that, might not happen during this work plan item because those 3 assessments have to happen first.
And that's specific to these being considered for
Correct.
land at ECP?
Yeah, so they would
Okay.
look at each one of these options and then basically look at that. Traffic, what are the traffic impacts, what are the noise impacts, and what is the parking impacts to the park?
So is there any outcome this commission could?
It's likely not for this commission.
Okay.
However, it would be a good carryover to the next.
So should this be all commissioners, or do we still want to name people to an ad hoc that doesn't really have an outcome per se relevant to this work plan item?
My recommendation is we could do one of 2 things. You either take it off the work plan because it's already funded,
Okay.
or you would leave it on the work plan and just maybe put placeholder next to it for future. But really, I mean, there's really there's likely no outcome for this term on this one.
Okay. I mean, my thought, knowing what turnover looks like, is you keep a placeholder, but Marla or Commissioner Elliott, what? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with taking it off, and I'm probably the one that's been on sand volleyball the longest here because I've been on it from the beginning. But I understand what Director Carlin's saying. If there's no likelihood that we can create an outcome this term or contribute to that, if commissioners cannot be of any assistance in that endeavor, then there's really no reason to have it. And we can always add in a component to the work plan during the course of our year, just like we added in when we felt like there was a need for pickleball advocacy, for example, which would likely fit under this category if it were still an objective that we wanted to tackle. So I'm okay If we don't have it on and we're just comfortable knowing that Director Carlin and all the staff are working hard to foster that outcome.
So I did want to make a point. Pickleball was added during the work plan when we created the work plan and approved by council. So the work plan has to be approved by council. That doesn't mean that there can't be a specific thing that comes up or a recommendation along the way, and that's not related to the work plan or listed on the work plan. But yes, we definitely have it on our work plan that we're going to be working and applying for this in this next fall and working with planning on this project.
Go ahead.
So we have to actually apply to change the major use permit at Encinitas Community Park. That's the first step in the process.
I know we're not here at this point now, but there will be a point where sand volleyball wants courts, pickleball player they want their courts, tennis players, and I imagine that commissioners might be helpful in sort of navigating and talking and discussing, working with those communities to help sort of filter the feedback. So would that happen in a future work plan? Or how do you envision, and I know you can't tell the future, but that whole process happening?
That would likely come in the 23-24 work plan.
Okay.
Right, after we get through the impact studies.
Would there be some sort of public outreach where, we want to hear what you prefer, or would these decisions be made based on?
No, that'd be there's going to be two parts of it. First, we're going to be looking at the impacts of each one of the uses, and that's going to drive that will drive it a lot. And then it'll also be some public outreach as well, and what the needs of the community are. The other thing that David and I found out when we met with Roy is that design is a big component of this. So having something designed when we're looking at the impacts. So the work that was done by the consultant that came in and did a presentation, very helpful. So that got us to a better point than what we would have been in if somebody
Yeah.
hadn't come forward with that.
That was very generous of them.
Very generous.
And they did
Yes.
an amazing job.
Yeah, so it's definitely a good starting point for us on at least one aspect to look at, and then we have to figure out how we're going to do the other two.
So, go ahead.
Well, the proposal, the design work that was done was for that specific corner in ECP, correct?
It was a specific design for sand volleyball courts, 4 of them, I believe, and it was in the place that the current teen center is planned for.
Right. So are we, in this process, are we going to consider other areas in ECP for analysis? Because I know we've talked about there's the huge area where the aquatic center was
Right.
potentially going to go.
So that is a potential area that we could look at. We will likely need to go to city council to release that area so that way it's not considered for a future project before we consider that area. So that will be part of the process as well.
Because I would expect that to potentially significantly change the parking and noise parameters or results from this study versus that one corner of the property.
Correct. There would be much bigger impact to the residents over there if the courts that were suggested would go where the teen center is, because it is closer to the residential property. However, staff does not feel comfortable making the decision to totally negate a future aquatic park in that park either. So it's likely that we're gonna get some advice and possibly bring that forward to the city council.
Okay, so it feels like there's more things to talk about and for us to potentially have input to. I mean, that would be a really big one if we're going forward with this study and we only study one corner of the park. I think we're missing a huge opportunity to get value out of those studies.
Absolutely. And like I said, that's something that would be done operationally, and we'd be bringing that to the city council if we needed to have a decision like that made.
Okay.
And like I said, The work plan is something that you're working on during the year. If this commission wants us to bring forward a recommendation, the topic of where the aquatic park is, we can certainly bring that forward to you. You could study it independent of what we're doing on the work plan, and you could make a recommendation to the city council.
Okay.
Because you are as an advisory board to the
Right.
city council.
So do we feel comfortable with the level of, or are we clear on the community's satisfaction with the current situation that we worked on last year, made the changes with the court sharing? Do we feel like we have all the information we need and no further community connection in the next year is required to see how they're feeling, or?
From a staff perspective, everything is going well. We haven't had any complaints. We always say, no news is good news.
Okay.
Yes, people in the community would love to see more tennis courts, more pickleball courts, sand volleyball courts, but we're working on it.
Okay.
So do we have an opinion as a group of whether we keep this on as somewhat of a placeholder, knowing there likely won't be anything for this commission to contribute in this work plan, or do we take it off?
I would vote for placeholder because I can't, it has to be on there somehow.
That's how I feel. Otherwise, it'll be forgotten potentially.
It's too important, yeah.
I could see splitting this into two parts, where sand volleyball would be one part and the pickleball tennis courts, because they're so very different.
Well, I think what staff was saying is that we have to just do a report, an impact report for anything. So all of these are grouped into the impact report, and it's not necessarily the determination of what we do, but rather, do we even have clearance within the community to do it? And that's what this next year will be used for us to study, is there, is the community receptive with all the requirements that we have to development of this use, of the use of the park being something other than what we'd initially thought it would be? So I think that's why it's grouped, more so than we're ready to develop any one of these.
So just to clarify, so basically we're looking at what is the best use for space in Encinitas Community Park. And if we can change the master planned use, or I'm sorry, the major use permit, which says that there's going to be a teen center that is just west of, just west of the skate park. And then there would be an aquatic center that is east of the skate park currently.
And do we expect at the end of this year to make that recommendation or make a proposal to what the best use of the park space is?
So just to clarify a little bit, the consultant will look at this from what is in the current environmental impact report. And so, for example, I don't know the square footage of the teen center, but if you assume that it's 2,000 square feet and had an occupancy of 99 persons, and there's a certain amount of traffic that's associated with those daily trips and parking spaces and noise generated, they will look at that use as it was proposed and adopted in the EIR and the major use permit. And then they'll also look at for sand volleyball courts and what's the average daily demand under vehicle miles traveled, parking, and noise. They'll look at pickleball for all of the same, and for each of the different amenities that we ask them to analyze. If any of those are shown to create a larger impact than the originally planned use, that use is likely not feasible. So it's prudent to determine, essentially from a scientific standpoint, what is allowable as a use before we address what's the best use. So if we were to take those out of order and did a lot of outreach, of course people want those amenities. And then we may later have to come back and deliver bad news. So to Director Carlin's point of view, It does make sense to get through this. We'll begin it in the fall. We'll have to procure a consultant. Their work will take 3 to 6 months, so it will be likely toward the end of your work plan when we have good direction on that.
That was very helpful. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. So what's the path forward from our commission's point of view regarding the aquatic center? Because again, if we just study that corner, that's not I don't think that's the direction we should go.
It's my understanding that we don't really have the authority to say we shouldn't do this, but we can say we don't think it makes sense for this commission to pursue it at this time, being that the community interest doesn't seem to warrant us devoting resources to trying to look into ways to advise city council as to the next steps on this. But I don't think that's the same as saying we don't think it should ever happen and we think it should be removed. We just don't think it's an active work plan item for us at this time. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, we concluded in this
Yeah.
past year that there was not sufficient community support or interest to go forward with that. We do have very significant community interest and support for all 3 of the items that we're talking about, but I'm trying to understand how we make a decision regarding that very large piece of property which would fit these courts better and not rub up against the current environmental impact of the teen center.
But we don't know that, right? And I think that's the point, if I understand correctly, that staff is making, is we are assuming that. But theoretically, an aquatic center would be indoor. It would probably be a very different use case. I mean, a teen center is too. I digress. But I think it would be a very different use case. And it may be fine to use the teen center. And the teen center, it doesn't sound like there's been, at least that I'm aware, a tremendous amount of community input either. So it might be a quicker path forward for us. I don't know. But it seems like the path of least resistance to getting us closer to delivering these new assets, as far as I understand what I've heard over the past 2 years.
I would be in favor of actually writing a letter from the commission to advise the city council that we have not seen significant interest in having an aquatic center, and hopefully move the idea that that should be included in, along with the teen center, included in the considerations that they be removed from the work plan and then evaluate what the traffic and noise and parking situation would be if both of those things were not there, and then consider what could we put in their place that has stronger community support.
I just want to chime in there. So again, traffic, parking, and noise is going to be this next term of the commission. We're not quite there yet to say that we're going to reuse the aquatic park area for another use. So we have to find out what the impacts are in those 2 areas. Right now, the $30,000 does not specify which part of Encinitas Community Park we're looking at. So that means that we have to define what areas we're looking at. We need to get some direction from the city council if it's needed before those impact to look at those areas, and then we can go from there. So my advice is take it off. I don't think we have an outcome for this year with this commission.
Okay, I'm going to repeat back to you what I just heard, because I think it's finally clicking in my dense brain. You're saying that we're going to assess the use of these assets. We are not saying for one area or another, but until we have a baseline understanding of what the use of those assets would be, you can't say would the teen center or the aquatic center be an appropriate place, because we don't even know if it's compatible with the use case or the requirements that exist for the assets that were initially laid out in that park. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, finally. Does everyone understand that? It took me a very long time.
Well, and maybe for my dense brain too. So does that mean we're going to assess both areas as part of this study?
We have to assess both areas. We'll have to assess the park.
Yeah.
to see what, what amenities best fit in the park and looking at the different options that we have presented before us. We know what our priorities are, and so those are the things that we're going to be looking at.
And Commissioner O'Halloran, I think the part that we're not thinking about is that this has already been done for these existing, the teen center and the aquatic center. So there's a baseline.
Right.
And now what we need to figure out is, do our recommendations come in below that baseline or above it? And if it's higher than what they designed the park for, it sounds like it's probably a no-go. But if it's less usage than what they designed it for, then you have the option of figuring out what do you swap it for. But we just have to have a baseline to compare.
Yep.
And I think that's what the next year will be, is just getting the data points that we can compare them.
Yeah, I like Vice Chair Ritter's idea of a letter, but I think maybe in the next year's work plan, when this information comes out, we could say we have not received significant feedback regarding an aquatic center. However, there's a powerful community for sand volleyball and sports courts and pickleball. So I like that idea. I think we could probably do that after this phase.
Okay, so then, is there any risk of us taking this off and forgetting about it, or that's not an issue we need to worry about?
The first step is budgeted for, so for
Okay.
this next fiscal year, we're going to be working on those impacts.
Okay, so then we can probably just take it off then, and then bring it back on once we have the results of the impact report. Are we all in agreement? Okay, great. Okay, moving along. Number 8, fitness trail court planning and recommendations. And I know he's not here, but I believe Commissioner Winters does want to remain on this ad hoc. I don't know why I keep looking at you like you're writing this down, I'm sorry. But Vice Chair Ritter, I'll let you give any updates you have on this one as well.
Commissioner Winters did mention that he would like to remain on this work plan item with me. We've already kind of written out the first draft for your consideration on the last column there. I would say that we might make it a little bit more generic on that sentence that says request community feedback for the addition of adult fitness equipment. I might make it more generic to say something like at our park facilities or something along those lines, rather than calling out ECP and CRT specifically. There may be some opportunities to include adult fitness equipment with playground replacement projects, and so in that sense, the ECP is not on that list, the short list currently. So there might be some opportunities to put some smaller facilities in conjunction with playground equipment. So, yeah.
Is anyone else interested in joining this ad hoc?
I would if you want a third man.
Woman.
We would love a third woman.
Yeah, there we go.
I think I really liked your idea about changing that one phrase, because I just think this has so much more potential. If we can just say, in any of our parks or alongside our trails, because there are so many trails other than the Cardiff Rail Trail that could accommodate a fitness component like this. And I am very excited about the potential of using this as a model and seeing if we can develop a methodology to replicate that throughout the city. I particularly like the idea of if we can do it, and I'm sure we'll get good guidance from staff as far as bringing in any private support, because I think if there's an opportunity that local businesses in the health or wellness industry or the fitness industry had an opportunity to make donations of equipment and get recognition for it, it would be a win-win.
I would also just say that some of our sister cities in San Diego County have currently started installing a lot of these fitness equipment or fitness courts. Mission Valley is currently under construction right along the freeway. They have a large fitness court they're putting in there that I've taken some pictures of that I should have included, but I didn't bring those with me tonight, but I'll bring them next time. And then also Carlsbad just opened up a fitness court facility at Calvera Hills, which I haven't had a chance to check out yet, but is on my list of things to do. But yes, I think that our community would be very, very interested in having outdoor fitness amenities like that. And we're excited to have you on the ad hoc.
Okay, does anyone have any other items we want to consider for the work plan? Staff, do you have any thoughts that you'd like us to be aware of? Okay, we've pleased them. Excellent. Okay, so then I just want to call everyone's attention to the fact that there's the calendar at the end of this work plan, just in case you didn't see it when you were scrolling through. And we have some exciting events coming up. Okay, cool. So we can move on to the informational items. So we'll start with the Parks Operations Report.
Good evening. Just a couple things for me this evening. First, I wanted to let you know if anybody attended the egg hunt, you may have seen this, but in collaboration with the Encinitas branch of San Diego County Libraries, we are hosting Story Trails 2022 at ECP. Story Trail consists of 18 bilingual sign panels that are designed for younger children to view with their parents or caregivers. The sign panels are displayed adjacent to the sidewalk that encircles the northeastern lawn area, essentially from the parking lot going into the park toward the playground. And so that will be up until May 2nd. And then my second item for tonight, it's with a heavy heart. I mentioned that our longtime park host at Cottonwood Creek, Terry Sisson, recently passed away. Terry was a consistent present at Cottonwood Creek, and he will be missed. Parks is preparing a request for qualifications to solicit applications for that park host position. We anticipate that RFQ will be available on our Planet Bids website by May 2nd and will be up for 30 days. And we will also post a notice in the paper, and I have a running list of folks that have expressed interest that I'll reach out to when that becomes available. So if you hear from anybody, please send them our way. That's it for me tonight. Thanks.
All right, my
Could
turn.
I just ask some general questions as to what the park host gets out of hosting there? I mean, is it basically free lodging, or how does that all work when they're living there on site?
Generally, we enter into a license agreement with the park host. We provide them with hookups to utilities, so water, sewer, and electricity. The park host is required to bring in an RV or a fifth wheel that they put in there. And in exchange for allowing their residency at that location, they have park host duties. And so they provide information to guests of the park. They will be backup for events when we have big events. And if we have heavy weekend traffic, they can help us monitor trash. And most importantly, there are eyes and ears in the park. And so they have direct line communication to the sheriff. If there's anything going on there, they contact park staff and let us know, if they see anything. And they really provide a valuable service in terms of providing more eyes on the park facility.
Thank you very much.
All right, my turn. So we have movie night. That's our next event that's coming up in the recreation side of things, and that's May 14th at Glen Park. We'll be showing the movie Encanto, and we'll also be doing a post-Mother's Day craft. So we're excited to have that be happening. Also excited to announce that we did hire our 3 extended part-time positions. One was promoted from a current straight part-time position to extended part-time, and that person, Elizabeth, will be overseeing events and rentals. We then hired Clinton, who will be overseeing senior services. He comes to us with an extensive background of rec experience from the Bay Area. And then Carolina will be assisting us with front counter, and she has a vast amount of experience from Algo Norte Aquatic Center in Carlsbad. So we're excited to welcome them to the team and have a little bit more consistency in our staffing, and they're going to bring a wealth of knowledge and some positivity and a breath of fresh air to the center. So we're really excited, and for two of them, their first day was yesterday. So we're really excited. And then my last item is that we're currently busy working on the summer rec guide. We're in draft number 2 right now. It's going to be due to households, or should hit households, on May 14th, and registration will begin on May 16th for those summer programs. The summer programs will include all new programs that begin in summer and any of the summer camps that aren't yet full and with extensive wait lists.
I have a quick question because I've never attended a movie night since I've been on the commission. Is there a volunteer role for commissioners at those events?
We always encourage commissioners to come to any of our events. Your presence is always welcomed and encouraged. Generally, for this event, it would be in the capacity of greeting people, welcoming them. We do have like an information booth, just like we had at the egg hunt, where people can come by and learn about what we do, rec guides, etc. So anyone that's interested in attending that event, please reach out to me, and we'd love to have your presence.
Thank you.
All right, I'll do the director's report. So I think last time we mentioned that we had won 2 awards from the California Parks and Recreation Society for Olympus Park and then for the patio over at the Community and Senior Center. But I have some more exciting news because Olympus Park won 2 more awards. One of them is from the American Public Works Association for the 2022 Project of the Year, and then also the American Society of Civil Engineers for the 2022 Outstanding Parks and Recreation Project. So we're very excited about those awards, and those will be received by staff this month. I'm sorry, not this month, but May. And staff will be attending to receive those awards, so we're excited about that. I want to thank commissioners that were there for the egg hunt. I think that commissioners had a great time this year and really worked together and really helped to make that event outstanding event. Lots of smiling faces, and I think that our attendance was probably up from the last time that we did that event. People are eager to get back out and about, so we're excited that so many attended the egg hunt this year. As some of you may have heard, the City Council has committed ARPA funding to the rehabilitation of Pacific View site. So that project is going to be underway soon. We're very excited about the activation of that site. It's been sitting vacant for a number of years, so that will be a great community asset once it's built. And city staff are already working on, just really looking at potential arts programming and such that can be happening at that site. So very excited about that. And then the last thing that I have to report on is I've been working probably for like the last 6 or 7 months on an RFP for the Encinitas Ranch Golf Authority. And I'm finalizing that hopefully this week so we can get that out. We've had the same management company, JC Resorts, since the beginning of the golf course. And so this is the first time that we are going out for RFP on the management of that golf course.
I have one more quick thing to add. As a final reminder, Arbor Day is on the 30th. If anybody wants to come and volunteer, it's going to be great. We'll be planting 50 trees at Cottonwood Creek. So we'll be starting at 9 and go till approximately 12 o'clock.
For volunteering, will you email us, or should we all independently email you guys?
We're all going to talk at once, so I think they were like, you can always email us if you're interested. We do try and send out reminders, just like I did for Egg Hunt, to put it back on your radar after this meeting. I know there's so much content here, but anytime you want to proactively, throw your hat in the ring and volunteers tribute, we'll make note of that and welcome you. But we will send a reminder as well.
I have a question, Director Carlin. You didn't mention it, but I heard it on the City Council about the July 4th parade. So did that get,
The July 4th parade did not make the list for
Okay.
this year.
okay, thank you. Oh, that's still me, okay. So you guys, I'm gonna take a minute because I've never known what items 10 and 11 meant on this agenda. And I'm gonna I asked staff to clarify for me in case you guys ever did need or want to know. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown that commission member initiated agenda item. I've never experienced one, but it's used when we want or need to make a recommendation to city council and need to add something to our work plan after the plan has already been adopted. So if some major project were to come up, and please correct me if I'm misstating, but if some big project were to come up mid-cycle, we could, as a commission, request that we get it added to our work plan so that something can be presented to city council at the end.
So only one clarification.
Okay.
It would just be an item that would be independent of the work plan.
Oh, independent of.
That came from a commissioner.
Okay. So I don't know if any of you wanted to know that, but now you know that. So are there any future agenda items that we need to be added or would like to have added? Okay. And then the roundtable, I also asked for clarification on how this should be used. And it should really just be to discuss how we've interacted with the community and any Parks and Rec events during the last cycle. If there are questions or things we need feedback or want to just discuss, we can't do it during this time, but we are encouraged to email staff to have that discussion offline, and then if it's relevant to share it with the commission during roundtable, we can. But I also wasn't sure exactly how to use this time, so I just wanted to clarify. Anything else you guys?
You did a good job. It's basically a show and tell time, and it's something that should not trigger a conversation because
Okay.
it's not agendized. So you're showing and telling. People can ask clarifying questions, but that's really what it's for.
Thank you. So, you ask your question and then you can start.
Well, congratulations on not forgetting the director's report, like I always seem to have done. No, I had a question for Director Carlin, and I know it's not appropriate for agenda item 12, but is it okay if I ask? It was just about the Pacific View, and is the Arts Commission involved with that as far as the use, or are they playing any role?
So we're still working on how we would bring the Arts Commission into that. Right now, we're looking at construction, or basically the design and construction of that facility.
Okay, so early on. All right, thanks. That's all I had for that.
Well, then, I'm sorry, did anyone else have a question? I just jumped right ahead. Okay. All right, well, Commissioner Warren, do you want to lead us in a roundtable?
Certainly. I don't have a whole lot. It's great to see our new chair and vice chair doing such a great job already. Little Oaks Equestrian Park looked really well maintained. I don't know if that happened recently. I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if I think something was done there recently, possibly. But I went over there today and it looked really, really nice. I think that's all. I'm sorry I missed the Easter egg hunt. It sounded fun.
Commissioner O'Halloran.
I'd just like to say thank you to our new commissioners and leaders on our commission. Really appreciate you volunteering and taking charge. Great job, Courtney,
you.
for sure. Thank you. And fantastic news on the additional awards for Olympus Park. Congratulations to all of you and everyone who participated in that. Thanks.
Commissioner Hanson, we'll just move down the line. Okay.
I'll just put in a quick plug for Arbor Day because it really is one of my favorite city events. I've gone out and planted trees generally for, most of them. So I'm sure that we'll be getting a notice via email to go participate in that, and I would encourage that. I want to say thanks for the fabulous job you guys are doing with the summer programs and the summer camps. Demand is overwhelming. I understand that you're swamped but you are putting out the programs that the city wants, and it's bringing so much joy. So thank you for doing that. And I will probably violate the rules of Roundtable by putting in a shameless plug for a quasi-city event on May 7th at the Encinitas Ranch Golf Course, the community area, to come and watch a golf ball drop for the Encinitas Coastal Rotary Club and all of the wonderful charities that will benefit from that event. Thank you.
I wanted to first say that park staff did an amazing job with our spring egg hunt. When I got there early in the morning, I was amazed at the production. I mean, there were so many volunteers there, and now I know what 20,000 eggs look like. But it really was impressive, and I knew that it was going to be a sizable event, but I didn't quite understand the scope until I was there. And actually, Commissioner Winters and I got the opportunity to go in the center, and Commissioner Winters actually started one of the egg hunts, and it was just so fun to see these kids just having such a great time. And so, good job. I only heard just amazingly positive things from the community, so thank you very much. And then Manager Norgard, if you might just throw up a couple of those photos, just to give you guys a quick update on what I've been working on the last year with regards to a trail connection. That's a little bit outside of what Parks and Rec is doing, but we're kind of hopefully getting the city involved to take care of it for us. This is that intersection in Cardiff at San Alejo and Manchester, where it kind of forks in the road, and we're looking at providing safer access to the Santa Lagoon trail system for downtown Cardiff residents. And if you'll go to the next slide, I worked with City Council to do what they're calling a quick build solution, and one of those is that they went through and cut out all of the invasive acacia trees that were growing along the side of Manchester in this kind of red area in the city right away. So it really allowed us to open up a trail that was covered by trees that forced people to walk in the road to get to the trailhead. And the trailhead, if Manager Norgard might indicate, the next slide, the trailhead is in the bottom right. So it allows people now to walk this blue line, and we're hoping that the city in the next budget cycle might consider actually putting some DG in there, and then also putting in the crosswalk to make it a safer transition to get over there. And then if you go to the next slide, the next couple slides just kind of show that where there was no path, now there's a place that you can walk and not be in the street when you do it. And the next slide too. So it was a somewhat low-cost solution to get our residents to the San Alejo Lagoon. And it's wonderful because this is the trail that also connects to the brand new bridges that will take you all the way to Solana Beach. So it makes it safer for not only Encinitas residents, but also people from Solana Beach who are traveling over to Cardiff and Encinitas. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of reiterate what's already been said, but congrats you guys on all the awards and the recognition. It's really exciting, and it was cool to see the little plaques presented at the city council meeting, so congratulations again. My kids are still enjoying their Easter egg haul, so it was a big hit in the Lappin household, and I just want to take a second to thank you guys, because as Vice Chair Ritter recognized. It was a big production, and my kids are 5 and 7 and have never participated in something like this, or that they remember pre-COVID. So for them, this was such a big, like they couldn't even comprehend that like the city did this, and that these eggs were laid out just for them, and that all these people could come together in this way. And I think a lot of us take it for granted because we do remember the before time. But from the eyes of a child, like, it was a really special opportunity to reconnect with the community and to feel kind of some normalcy and get to do these things again. And they're still talking about it, and they can't wait for the next one. But thank you for how much effort and time you put into it. It was hours of setup and 30 seconds of mayhem, but it was a big hit. So thank you guys. And I think that's all I have to add as well. I'm looking forward to Arbor Day and movie night, so thank you. Okay, and now do we just adjourn? Okay, and at 7:15 p.m. we are adjourned. Thank you.